All right, geometry students, let's talk about a parallelogram real quick. With the parallelogram, opposite sides are going to be congruent. Okay, this is nothing new. We've been talking about it for a week. All right, so let's change the rules up a little bit. And let's say the congruent sides are now not on the opposite anymore, but they are now on the adjacent. So, which means the two sides are touching each other or on the exact same side as the shape. And if that's the case, you have a kite. All right, a kite is where you have adjacent sides are congruent. Okay, now with the kite, there are a couple of rules that you need to pay attention to. All right, so here we go. All right, here's an example of a kite. And I pulled this picture off the internet, so it may not look great, compared to the other stuff I've ever shown you. So let's say that side is congruent to that side, and that side there is congruent to that side there. Okay, notice the geometric shapes or symbols that I used. Okay, let's talk about the angles for a second. All right, now the congruent angles of a kite will always be the will always be the angle that is in between the two non-congruent sides. All right, so let me just say that once again. You have this side that is congruent to this side. I'm just going to color code that again. And then also you have this side here, which is congruent to that side right there. Okay, now the angles that will be congruent, all right, will be this angle here and this angle here. Okay, notice the location. They are in between the two non-congruent sides. All right, this angle right there, see how it's in between the two congruent sides? And so is that. So that means those will be not, they will not be the same. So let me just kind of use some numbers here. All right, so let's just play the what if game for a second and say if this angle right here was 95 degrees, then this angle here would also be 95 degrees. All right, now this angle down here and this angle down here could be anything, but all we do know is they're not going to be the exact same. And so, but of course, you know as I do, hopefully at this point in time, when you add all four sides up, you'll get 360 degrees. All right? All right, so let's try an example here. All right, I'm just going to make this off the top of my head, so hopefully you got this. And of course, if I'm going too fast, pause the video so you and back it up so you can kind of pick up anything you're missing. All right, so let's just say, for example, this was a 50-degree angle. All right, this angle right here, we'll just say is 150 degrees. All right, what would that angle be? All right, that's my question. Now, of course, you know that all four angles add together to get to 360 degrees. And you know that that angle and this angle is exactly the same. So if that is x, we can actually use x here. So if you want to go ahead and solve for x, pause the video and then work it out. If not, just stay with me. So pause it right now if you want to. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this entire shape and set it equal to 360. So that'd be x plus x. I'm drawing with my mouse here, so it may look a little funny here. 50 degrees plus 150 degrees is equal to a total of 360. Well, when I combine like terms, I get 2x plus 200 is equal to 360. And I'm just going to go ahead and solve for x. X is going to equal to 80 degrees. All right. So what that means is this angle here is 80 degrees. And lastly, this angle here is 80 degrees. All right. Pretty simple. All right. Let's change it up a little bit. Let's talk about the diagonals. All right. So the diagonals, remember, are two lines that connect the opposite angles. All right, I'm going to try to draw this as best as I can. And my kite is a little off. So let's just assume for the moment that this is perfect going into each. Well, you know what? I don't even like that. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to get a better kite to work for this. All right, let's keep going. All right, here we go. Here's a better kite I found off the internet, and hopefully it'll work for us. Well, this actually kind of helps us out a little bit because it helps us review. If AC was 8 units long, that means AD would be 8 units long, as well as if DB was 12, CB would be 12. Hopefully you got that. And hopefully you also can pick out what two angles would be the congruent angles. So I'll give you a second. All right, hopefully you said it was C and that would be D. Awesome. All right, so let's actually go back to diagonals because that's what we really wanted to talk about here. The diagonals of a kite. Let's hope that this works, and it does. Good. All right. Now here's what's special about the diagonals of a kite, and it's the exact same as the diagonals of a rhombus where they intersect. It is a 90-degree angle, okay? So that's 90 degrees. This is 90 degrees here. This is 90 degrees, and lastly, this is 90 degrees. All right, so when you're figuring out information, that's the first thing that you can assume is that when the diagonals come together, they are perpendicular. All right, let's keep talking about angles for a second. All right, now notice that this right here, this angle would be congruent to this angle, and this angle here would be congruent to this angle there. Now, hopefully you've been with me long enough to understand what's going on here, is that this diagonal is actually cutting A directly in half, and it's cutting B directly in half as well. And you guys know as well as I do that is an angle bisector. Okay, so let's actually do some examples and put some numbers with some of this. All right, so let's just say, for example, this angle right here, we'll just say this is 30, and I can't, it's hard to write with a mouse, so let's see. This is 35 degrees, okay? From here, solve as much as you can with this, um, information, okay? So based on this information here, I know that this will be 90 degrees, as always. This will be 90 degrees, 90 degrees, as well as 90 degrees. So all that is 90 degrees. Now, if that's 35, this also would be 35 degrees as well, okay? Now, this is where you might have to really dive into your triangle type stuff here. And so here's what we're going to do with our triangle. And hopefully you remember that from the week before. I'm going to kind of blot out some of this information here, okay? And we're only going to pay attention to that triangle right here. Well, that's 35 degrees, that's 90 degrees. And hopefully you've learned right now that 180 degrees is what a triangle equals. So if that's 90 degrees, that's 35 degrees, then this angle right here should be 50 degrees. Okay? So if that's 50 degrees here, now we can actually bring back the other information. And of course, I know I'm kind of going this kind of fast, but you should know some of this. So going this fast shouldn't hurt you too bad. So you know that this is an angle bisector here. So if that's 35 degrees, and this right here will be 35 degrees. This is a 90-degree angle, and this right here would also be 50 degrees. Okay, 35, 90, and 50. There you go. All right. So at this point in time, this is about as far as we're going to go because this is all the information that we have at this point in time. All right. So we can't really solve for anything else because we don't have it. But the only thing that we do have the information is that we know that A is a total of 70 degrees. Okay. But let's review a little bit. And I can add this information because I'm the teacher. All right, so let's say that's 70 degrees, and let's add this to B. B is 60 degrees as well, okay? So if that was the case, then you know that this right here would be 30 degrees because this is an angle bisector. Both these are 30 degrees, okay? But let's keep going even further. And let me take all this information out of the center. What would the entire angle C be, and what would angle D be? Hopefully you remember this. Now, of course, you know it's a four-sided shape, okay? It's a four-sided shape, and you know that a four-sided shape has a total of 360 degrees, okay? So you know that D and C, hopefully you remember, are going to be congruent. So go ahead and pause the video real quick and figure out what would C and D be. And if you guessed 115 degrees each, you would be correct. Okay, so good job on that. Oh, 150 is not right. It should be 115 degrees. And so if you're still having trouble, don't worry, because this is just an introductory video on kites. So let me know a little bit on what you think on Monday, and we'll be able to answer any questions. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.